All right, welcome back to the MMA Creators Podcast, episode number 27. We're not going to plug our names because we don't do that anymore. New era. We're just going to jump straight into the fights because we had a great night of fights last night in front of a live crowd in Austin, Texas. It was, I got to say, one of my favorite cards of the year. I had a great time. I mean, 2 slam KOs, which we can delve into. Just give me your initial thoughts on that.
Yeah, it was kind of crazy because we always see these fun fight nights every now and again where it's so stacked it almost looks like a pay-per-view. And whether it will deliver or not is a whole nother question. And being able to deliver to that level was seriously impressive. On the spin, back-to-back slam KOs.
I couldn't really believe what I was seeing because I went to the bathroom between the fights and I turned it on just as sort of the first round of the second one was starting. And then I was like, did I miss a fight or something? I was like, there's no way we've just had 2 slam KOs in a row, let alone 2 on the same card, which is absolutely batshit. I want to know what the odds were for that to actually happen. But, you know.
And you have to think as well, for Drakkar
especially the first one as well.
Drakkar Klose has been out for a long time. He was on the undercard of Beneil Dariush, who he's very famous for having that crazy fight with, that very viral moment. So his sort of career is in a weird 180, if you like. And he comes out after a long layoff and goes and does that against a good opponent is seriously impressive. But
good on the mic too.
Yeah, weird on the mic, to be honest. I don't think he was good
weird,
on the mic.
Weird, but good, though. Charming. I'm good in the sense that, authentic. Authentic, you know? I don't know. He was just like, I'm just trying to get paid. He was like, give me the easiest guy. I thought it was quite refreshing, to be honest.
Authentic.
In a weird way.
100%.
Yeah, authentic's the right word. Wrong, yeah. Charming's the wrong word. Authentic is the right one.
Not. I don't know if Dana was charmed by that post-fight press.
Do you know who got the bonuses? Who got the bonuses for that?
Pretty much everyone, to be honest. Because there were, I think they gave out eight bonuses. I think they said 500,000 or just under. Yeah, so that would be 10 bonuses, right? Yeah. So they gave $500,000 in bonuses. So pretty much most people who got finished got a bonus on that card. What jumps out of you? Where do we even start? Should we just start at the top, work our way back?
Yeah, go for it. I mean, looking at the Dariush fight, I said to you last week that Tsarukyan would win. I didn't expect him to win in that way. And you picked Dariush. And the thing is, I will concede. I said I picked Tsarukyan then, but I streamed yesterday. And through all out this build-up this week, I've been thinking about it. And I changed my pick to Dariush. And I even put a 5 on him because there was some nice odds on him just to even win. I was like, that line is crazy for me not to put just a little bit down. And I quickly had that humble pie served up fresh because that was the power generated in that right hand that Tsarukyan brought. You know, he's not really known for his striking, is he? And to knock out a guy like Dariush, who is he's got the power. You know, that was the sort of impression going in, was that Dariush was going to be the danger on the feet and Tsarukyan would have to find that path with the takedown. But he barely even needed a minute. I have to say, it was very impressive. And I think that just cements him as surely now you've got to be next in line, or maybe one more fight if Dana really wants to slow him down. I don't know. What do you think? Where does Tsarukyan go from here? Because that was such an impressive performance.
Like you said, I think if I told you before the fight someone's getting KO'd stiff in the first, you would think just logically, because we know of Beneil's power, you think it'd be him, right? And he came out and the knee and the right hand was so quick. I thought it was the knee that landed. I didn't actually even see the right hand behind it. But then when you watch it back and realize that he doesn't even have his leg planted, he's thrown that right hand on one leg essentially, and just found not only the perfect placement, but the power he generated. It put Beneil out for a very long time. He was on the canvas for a while. And like you said, we maybe overlooked that element of Arman Tsarukyan, but you have a look at his career now and you say, what do you do with him? I think, well, now he's that bona fide superstar. You can do whatever you like with him and anything and everything makes sense. I don't think anything's off the table because we've got that narrative with Islam Makhachev. We've got a signature statement win now with Beneil Dariush with that performance. And I think Justin Gaethje.
Ooh. You don't think Gaethje deserves a title shot, though? I feel like that's a bit harsh on Gaethje, considering his age and how long he's got. Realistically, Gaethje's days are numbered at the top of the game because he's just old. Time will come for him, so I think you have to give him that shot. I think they'll allow Gaethje to sit out because Oliveira will get that shot, and then they'll roll it around for Gaethje, whoever wins. Yeah, I don't know. It's a weird one, isn't it? I get what you're saying to sort of... Nah, I mean, you can't have him fighting down now, I don't think. I suppose not. Something I really did notice was how much he's... I don't know if you felt this way, but I really felt like he's bulked up massively. He looked way bigger than I remember seeing him in his earlier fights. And maybe it's a psychological thing.
I
Maybe
think
I'm
it's just
just seeing
age.
things. But yeah, he's just filling out that frame, getting older. How old is he now? Because he's still very young, isn't he? I'm pretty sure he's
You have
just
to
sort of
remember when he came onto the scene, that fight with Islam on short notice was when he was
his debut, wasn't
21
it?
years of age.
That's
21.
insane.
So
Yeah, he's only 27.
just beginning to grow
Perfect.
into his adult body. And you look at lightweights and that sort of weight category, you would probably say their prime and their physical prime would come around early 30s.
29, 30. Yeah.
So we've got a lot to take from Arman over the next few years
We'll
in
be
terms
talking
of
about him
fans.
for a long time, I think.
For sure.
I
Super
think
impressive.
down the line we'll be talking about him defending his belt. I think that's why I'm seeing. I think if he can level up that striking as he seems to be doing, then got to be well rounded in this game, and that's the path he's taken. And honestly, very impressive. But I think on the other end of the spectrum, what do you do with Dariush? Where do you go from there? Like his days are numbered, right? That's my immediate thoughts. He looks about 50, and his body's starting to act like it too. So
It's difficult because I love Benil
34 years
Dariush.
of
He's
age.
so talented, and it's disrespectful to sort of say, oh, again, it wasn't his night. And obviously there's multiple factors coming into play. It's just almost a little bit frustrating when we watch Benil Dariush of recent, because he has so many skills and so much ability. And for whatever reason, it's just not coming together, and he's not being able to show any of it, and he's getting clipped and caught, and
Hasn't really had the
maybe
chance, has he?
no, maybe there's a few too many fights on the body, maybe there's a few too many training camps, and maybe he is getting to that point of his career where you come up against these hard hitting bulldozers. It's going to be tricky. So what do you do with him now? I think it's fun matchups really at lightweight. I think that's where he goes from here. I think
you
it's
can
fun
wind him
big name
down, can't you?
matchups.
Give him some up and comers, yeah. Like wind him down to that
Fitzev,
top 15. That's probably what I'd say. Yeah, I imagine Darius is going to take more time off after two back-to-back, KO
but
losses. So
Fitzev's still coming back from his knee,
Fiziv's got
so
to
he's
come
got
back
a
from
little
his
while.
injury. Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. It makes sense. He can sit out for a little while, recover, recuperate. But at the same time, on the other end, you might want to say maybe he doesn't want to do that. He's not getting any younger, is he? So maybe he wants to get back in there as soon as possible.
That was a
Realistically, if
harsh
he's going to
KO,
make a
though.
run at the title, it is. Yeah, I know, but maybe he has to take those risks because there's something about a stat about a lightweights being above 36. None of them have won a belt or something like that in every title
35.
shot. 35. Yeah, there you go.
Not lightweight.
So he's got less than a year. Is it? I'm
I
pretty
think
sure it was
it's
lightweight. Something
flyweight
about
to
Gaethje. It was a stat
lightweight.
compared to Gaethje.
I think it's flyweight
Yeah, I mean,
to
even
lightweight.
then again, that just proves the point even more, doesn't it? All of those divisions. So, kind of a glaring point to make there. People can say, "Oh, I'll disprove that theory," but no one's done it. So, his days are numbered. I think if you're gonna go for that, it's a personal decision he's gonna have to make with his team. So, we'll have to wait and see. I like the Fiziev fight if he wants to sit out for that, just as a purely on a matchmaking perspective. But it's all up for Sarukian and all down for Dariush. I think is probably the conclusion there. But I think we'll look at the co-main, which we can. I don't want to delve too much into the referee stuff because I think we both agree that was shocking, and I'm sure everyone who's talking about that fight ever right now is going to be saying how bad the refereeing is. I think it's a no-brainer. But just talking about the performances specifically, Jalen Turner on short notice leveling up, and we said how much of a technician Bobby Green is with that vet experience, but youth prevailed, I think, last night, and it was a brilliant knockout, irrespective of how many shots Bobby didn't need to take. But yeah, very impressive from Jalen.
I think that's what I mentioned last week with this matchup. Both guys super talented. Bobby Green obviously got all the momentum. The difficulty that you have if you're Bobby Green, yes, you've fought and sparred a million people that are longer and taller than you. But that's the problem with Jalen Turner. He is so sharp that at range, he's just such a problem. And if you have a style like Bobby Green where your hands are down, he's never going to change that. But you do put yourself at a much higher risk when you're facing someone like Jalen, who just can get to you from so much distance. And it only took that right hand over the top, and he just sort of rolled with it a little bit, but it went over his shoulder, caught him on the side of the temple, lost his equilibrium, and then once you've got someone like Jalen, Yeah, once you've got someone like Jalen Turner and you can see you're on wobbly legs, he's going to put you away most likely. And obviously the stoppage is there for another day. But it
That was
just
crazy, man.
stifles
Yeah.
it just stifles the momentum of Bobby Green because he was on a nice little roll, but it really picks it back up where Jalen Turner was, and he had that sort of little blip with Dan Hooker. And now you're looking with Jalen
I don't think you
Turner.
could even call that a blip, though, honestly,
Well,
because
blip as a
I think he fought
loss.
a good fight in that. Yeah, blip. Yeah, okay, yeah. Is in an actual loss on the record, but I think he didn't lose any stock. If we're talking on a stock perspective, I think he fought a good fight in that Dan
Well, he
Hooker
lost
fight, as much
momentum.
as his
Let's put
cardio
that.
failed him. Yeah, I'll give you that. Yeah.
Let's put that.
I mean,
He
it was
lost
very impressive, though, I
momentum,
have to
right?
say.
He lost momentum going into that fight. Now I think he's just picked all of it back up, especially and even stupid things like Bobby Green had that incident with Arman Tsarukyan this week. So his name was heightened in the media. His fight was heightened
Yeah.
in the media. And therefore so was Jalen Turner's. Obviously his fight was heightened in the media. So I think there was a lot of press. There was a lot of noise around this card, obviously stepping up last minute. So who would you like to see him face next, Jalen Turner? Because he's a fun fighter, whoever you
Ooh.
put him in there with.
Thing is, whenever I get asked this, I always have to get the rankings up. Does that make me a casual? I
No,
feel
it's
like
just
it
there's
does.
so many people.
How the hell do people remember them, isn't it? Yeah, I'm looking now.
Obviously,
I
we've
mean,
seen the Gamrot fight. That was close.
why not give him RDA? Benoit Saint-Denis. Fuck it. That's fun as fuck.
Ooh, that
Yeah,
is fun.
I like that.
That is fun. But what
I go
ranking
Saint-Denis if I had to pick
Saint-Denis?
between those two. I mean, Saint-Denis sitting at 11, Turner's at 12. I mean, I know it doesn't move them much, but I'm looking for fun fights, and you're asking me if that's
true.
fun. Absolutely. Gamrot, maybe. Oh, he's already fought Gamrot, didn't he?
Full Gamrot, yeah.
I mean, Fiziev, it's a shame Fiziev's injured because I feel like he'd be such a good matchup for anyone there. Just he's sitting at that number 7 rank, sort of nestled in there perfectly, and everyone else is kind of busy.
I saw a
So
lot of people this week talk about how Fiziev should possibly go down to 145, which I thought was actually a
do you reckon he
super
can make it?
interesting. Well, a lot of people raised a fairly decent point. You see him on the scales. He's never that sucked in. He's
Yeah,
quite
that's true.
short, quite stocky. You look at someone like
I wouldn't say he's
Barboza.
small for lightweight, though. You know what I mean?
No, I wouldn't say he's small. I'd just say he does have a smaller frame. And
Yeah.
he doesn't necessarily have that one punch knockout power at lightweight. Although we've seen that in these sort of Muay Thai days. We've never really seen that inside the UFC. And I think if you think of him at 145, if he could make it, that is super interesting. But his cardio's always been a big if, and I wonder how that would look if he had to make those extra pounds. But that's a story for another day.
Yeah, very true.
It's definitely a story for another day.
I
But
will have to pick up on just quickly. Rob Font, Figueiredo. We
this
said
is what I was
last
gonna
week
go,
we
yeah.
were both in
This was
agreement.
gonna
Yeah. We were both in agreement that the narrative around that fight was all Rob Font, and I didn't really understand it.
Was it?
And yeah, I honestly everywhere I saw was saying Rob Font this, Rob Font that, and I love Rob Font, but I couldn't see him winning this fight. I thought Figueiredo's power would translate well, which it did, as we saw last night. His frame was filled out nicely. His cardio looked good. You know, I think not having that weight cut clearly helped him because you've seen that affect him so much, particularly in that second Brown and Moreno fight. You know, he looked like a shell of his sort of proper self, and he's carved out a nice little place for himself in the bantamweight division already. And he's rolling back the years almost because again, we talk so much about how age is such a huge factor, but I guess moving up to bantamweight has really been a good move for him. I think he just had the edge. It was a closer fight than I think people were saying, in my opinion. I thought it was pretty.
Really
the
close.
first round was honestly I could have given it either way, and then third round was definitely Figueiredo's, and second round was more so Figueiredo's. But it was a close fight. I wouldn't say it was a whitewash, but the narrative that Figueiredo was going to be done and Rob Font would piece him up, I didn't understand, and I think we were both proven right there. I think it was a great performance from the God of War.
I think when I watched this fight, I expected a lot. I'll be honest. I expected a lot from Davison Figueiredo. I know how skilled he is. We've seen what he's capable of doing, and I only thought that it was gonna. I thought everything was gonna translate over. To be honest, I guess you never know until you see it. But I was really confident in that, and I felt like Rob Font was actually quite a nice stylistic matchup for him, because although Rob Font is excellent and he is a fantastic striker, I just felt like when Davison landed, he was probably going to ring the bell a little bit louder, which proved to sort of be the case.
That was true.
Right?
Yeah.
But I would say it was a really, really close first 2 rounds. Like, we're really pulling hairs. I think that maybe on the
Yeah,
commentary and the scorecards 30-27 reflected a very sort of distant
I think that's
fight.
a bit
But
harsh, but I
the
could see it.
first two I thought were razor thin. I think the thing that was really impressive actually from Davison was just that slight elevated offensive wrestling game. The single leg that he was going to was
Yes.
super impressive, and that just clinched him a few big moments in the fight. And that's something that definitely stood out, that I could tell so clearly where he'd been working with Henry Cejudo, not only just in the small details of the grappling, but more
That's a
so the
great
small
point.
details of the fight, of stealing rounds, of the optics, as they
Very
call it.
elusive. That's what I noticed.
And this
They have
is
great
something
footwork.
that Henry Cejudo mentions a lot. It's not necessarily winning the fight and just punching people. It's stealing rounds. It's winning on the scorecards. And I think that we really saw that from Figueiredo. Now, when I actually look at his skill set, I thought he looked a touch slower, a touch behind what he usually does. I thought his output was a little bit less than I would have expected him to be
Yeah,
able to
I would have liked
push.
to see more punches, Soren.
Yeah, I thought he would have been able to push just a slightly higher pace. And I think when it got a little bit dirtier, you could sort of see that old Davison's eyes light up a little bit and go, "Oh, we're sort of
Yeah,
getting
there was a
into it
little bit. There was
now."
a little section in that third round. It was after the right after, was it a low blow? I think there was a low blow. Right, and they just started getting after it. There was the ref called a timeout, whatever it was. I can't remember. But then they just started getting after it in the pocket for about 15, 20 seconds, and I was loving it. I would say, as much as Figueroa thought a good game plan, very elusive, sort of. He was very good at circling back out and resetting
Mm,
to just sort of work his game. But obviously, as from a fan perspective, it's maybe not as fun to watch. But I thought it was still a pretty fun fight. I thought that third round
for
was really
sure.
good. Very impressive. I don't really know where he goes from here.
Peter Yan.
Because bantamweight is a shark tank.
Peter Yan.
Piotr Jan, that's a great shout, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah. Oh, wait, Song Yadong got a fight booked? He does, doesn't he? Who's he fighting?
Next week,
I believe Song Yadong's got a.
Chris
He's
Gutierrez.
fighting Piotr Jan, isn't he?
Next
No?
week.
Oh, he's fighting Gutierrez. It's my Piotr
Bro,
Jan. What am I talking about, honestly?
come on.
I should just get off it, yeah. Yeah, I knew he had a fight. Yeah, that's a great fight, actually. Chris Gutierrez, I actually quite like a lot. Again, we'll come to that in the future, I'm sure. But another one, Sean Brady, very impressive. I think we'll just touch through that. I didn't expect the level of dominance. You were right when you said Kelvin wouldn't get choked out. It's impossible to choke the man out, but you can get submitted, just not, on the neck.
Your arm
And
can get
I
snapped.
thought about that because, yeah, exactly. I thought about that because I mentioned Jack Manson was able to get him with, I believe it was a heel hook or something like that. It was a leg submission back in the day of a Gastelum a few years back. And I said that's probably the only weakness on the mat in terms of a submission threat against him could be is sort of with a joint submission. So it was good to see Sean Brady, sort of take advantage of that, but also the wrestling was so impressive. Kelvin really had no answer, and it's almost sad to watch because I think the fairy tale outcome would have been a sort of romantic return to the win column for Kelvin. Obviously he did beat Chris Curtis, which was a very good win, but you'd hope he'd start to pull some wins together. That's not going to happen. Sean Brady just arrived and completely stopped that train in its tracks, and yeah, I was very impressed. Color me surprised, I have to say.
I think when I've been watching the journey of Sean Brady over the last couple of years, everyone I've heard speak about him, trained with him, they all speak about how good his grappling is, and more than that, just how strong he is. So
You can
I
tell as well.
don't think we've ever seen him perform to his truest potential like we have in that fight. And I think there was a lot of narrative going into it about the Bilal Muhammad fight. And one thing to mention is Bilal is actually very good. Let's just remember that. And number two,
Yeah,
there's a
let's
lot
not
of
get that twisted.
there's a lot of nuance to that fight because you've got a guy that's never even left America, and he's fighting in Abu Dhabi in all the stars in the biggest fight of his life.
Is that
He's
true?
never even left America. This is
Wow.
this is the thing with the fight game. There's a lot of small details to these fights. So when I saw that from
Yeah.
Sean Brady, it was more so I'm super interested to see how he comes back. And there's no bigger statement performance than what he just done there. Not only to dominate, but to get the finish. And what I will say, just the last thing on Kelvin is, I've openly said how high I am on Kelvin Gastelum, and I still am. But there was just something off that night. It when you watch him on the feet, it wasn't necessarily the ground game. I actually thought he done well on the ground. To compete with Sean
Yeah,
Brady
defensively
for that long is very difficult to do. Very, very difficult to do. But when you watch Kelvin on the feet, he couldn't get his timing. He couldn't get his feet under him. He was just leading in with his shots. His head was falling forward. His balance was a little bit off. And I was super surprised because we're so used to seeing Kelvin with such a nice, comfortable, tidy boxing style.
Yeah, even just one fight ago. Yeah, it looked so much better.
So I was super confused, and I just wondered, was he fast for 185 and he just loses that speed advantage
Maybe
at 170? Or was it just a long time away from the cage and he just couldn't find his rhythm? Or was Sean Brady just so good, or was it a combination of all three?
I think it's a case of the latter, to be honest. I will have to say, though, there are in the fight game some terrible, terrible tattoos. But I have to say, Sean Brady might have the coolest set of tattoos I've have any fighter on the roster. I don't know. Just give me your thoughts on that quickly, because I have to say they are awesome. Because I'm not huge on the back.
It looks pretty sick.
Thing it's a bit creepy, but honestly, yeah, those tats on the legs, and they're awesome. I'm not even one for tattoos. You know, I don't got any, but I
think if you're
watching that,
I think if you're a grappler
cool,
like he is, it just looks kind of sick. Yeah, it just looks kind of sick. He's transitioning beyond positions. He's going for submissions.
Yeah, very cool.
He's just doing very nice things on the mat. He just looks kind of cool with a bit of artwork.
It looks cool, doesn't it?
Yeah, for sure.
He's very inked up as well, man.
Ian Gary next to Sean Brady. That's the fight to make.
Who do you think wins that? That's such a hard one to pick, isn't it? It's so difficult because it's really who's going to outclass who in whose realm. That is the crux of it, because I think Ian pieces him up on the feet, and I think Brady dominates him on the mat. So it's whoever can work their game first. Really, I'm sure. Honestly, I won't be surprised if that fight happens too. So
I think Sean definitely has the ability and has the skills and has the coaching. You look at the team in Philadelphia, super high level guys, and you have a look at the people on the mat like Joe Pyfer now as well. Not only such good grapplers, but good boxing. So I do believe that Sean Brady has the ability to box his way inside of people. So you look at matchups like Ian Gary. Do I believe that he could find his way to a clinch position? 100%, especially with someone like Ian, who has very long limbs to grab onto, very long kicks to catch, very long body to get hold of, you know. I think he would be able to work it, but that's a story for another day. What else jumped out at you on the UFC Austin? Because it was kind of crazy, really, start to finish.
I was very impressed with Veronica Hardy, because I was watching her interview on MMA Hour, just talking about Dan Hardy, and obviously you can see how much having Dan in her corner and, you know, coaching, you know, on a personal level, has really just helped her massively, because obviously she fought a pretty good fight at 286, coming back from she was I didn't know how long she was out for, due to like she had head trauma, headaches and stuff, and she nearly didn't fight again. I thought she looked quite good, you know, considering her record isn't the most flattering, but it just shows you the level of improvement she made. She was 1-4, I believe, going into that 286 fight, and now she's 1-2 on the trot. So I'm impressed to see where she goes. She's only 28 or something like that, so that's something to look out for. Yeah, I mean, Misha Tate as well, rolling back the years, that was good.
That was impressive.
Actually, no, I'll finish on just one more before we go into some other stuff. Rodolfo Bellato versus Pateria. Oh my word, what a comeback that was. I had money on Bellato. I was shitting myself.
Why?
Brought back shades of
Why?
Because I like him. I was like, screw it. I think he's quite fun to watch. I just had a bit of a hunch. Yeah. No. I've been doing a little bit more betting and a little bit more research and stuff, but
a bit more gambling.
Really didn't pan out. Yeah, nothing. I don't bet huge amounts of money, and I don't bet very often. So, I pretty much broke even last night, because I had the Dariush fight. I was in the money, and then the Dariush fight basically just put me down like £5. But it's nothing. I broke even. But the Bellato, that comeback was something. I have to say, he was 1 or 2 punches away from getting stopped. I love fights like that. You know, as I said, it reminded me of Dvalishvili versus Marlon Moraes. That's it. Yeah. I loved it. Just good classic slugs. You know what I mean? Will to win and just overturning it. I loved it. It was honestly, the whole card was just awesome. And as I say, it's just anytime you get them in front of a live audience, it's so much better than the Apex. And I saw that so much also on the Twitter sphere and
Facts.
everything, people talking about it. You just need it, don't you? And I think we should start a petition to just abolish the Apex Center unless it's a Holly Holm main event. Then I'll allow it. But
How many fight nights? It's all well and good. We talk about UFC Austin, great card, great atmosphere, great finishes, great fights. And don't get me wrong, I believe if we want to look at MMA as one of the biggest sports in the world, one of the fastest growing sports, in what world would you get a Premier League football match played behind closed doors? You wouldn't. It's as much
very
of a
true.
spectator
Great
sport
point.
as it is for anything else. And when you're growing up in the sport, when you're looking to achieve your dreams and fight in the UFC, you want to fight in front of big crowds. You want to fight in front of big events. Now, my caveat to that would be how many of those fight nights are going to sell out arenas, because 90% of the year, people are complaining how bad fight night cards are. Not us personally, but you get a lot of people saying how watered down they are and diluted the product is. They put on 48 flipping shows a year. It's not easy to pack that out with pay-per-view worthy cards every week. My only question would just be, would they be able to make that financially feasible every week to put these cards in front of shows on the road?
Just do it in the UK every time.
I'm not sure.
Put them in the same price in the UK, they'll sell out straight away. That's just it. I mean, if you looked at getting tickets for back when Aspinall fought Tybura, the half of the arena was empty because they were still trying to stiff fans for those prices. And finally, I think they'd reached their limit because I saw tickets on sale. It's actually due to an error. This is just a bit of a tangent, but I saw them on sale for 30 quid. Tickets on sale for 30 quid. They weren't meant to be that cheap, and obviously they were on resale. But even then, the actual resale prices dropped massively to like 60 quid or something like that. Even less than that, I think, at some points. So, if you put them at a regular price, like the same price they sell them in the US for a fight night, in the UK, I know I'm just thinking hypothetically because I know logistically that makes no sense, but more fight nights in the UK. If you want to make money, that's one way of doing it because they'll sell out if you price them reasonably. They'll sell out 100%.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Speaking of that, I don't know when we're going to get our next sort of. I hope it's not a London card. Really, I mean, for me and you, it would be great, but people across the country have to trek down to the capital. It can be a bit of a pain in the arse, but I'm not going to complain. But we need a bigger arena than the O2. I feel like you need somewhere larger than that for a London event.
Well, talking about trekking down from the north, that is exactly where I went this week. Yeah, exactly where I went this week. The first time that I've ever been to Liverpool, to be perfectly honest. Have you ever been to Liverpool?
No, I have not. No,
it's quite impressive.
Honestly, I'm not in the UK. I'm not very well travelled, really. Furthest up north is where I've been is Nottingham, so which is obviously where I went for uni. So, but no, I haven't. I have not been to Liverpool. What's it like?
I was quite impressed, to be honest. I thought it was actually quite nice. In an ideal world, I try to create a triangle of content. So I was going down to see Molly at her restaurant, and then I wanted to see if I could squeeze in multiple people within the trip. So I had another friend in Liverpool who owns a New York style deli shop. So I stopped in there.
Oh, and then my language.
I wanted to, it was very much my language. I'll just take you through I might as well just take you through the trip. So I got there on the Wednesday. Yeah, stayed the evening there. On the Thursday, I went down to the gym and met Molly for sparring. So watched her sparring session.
Oh, nice.
Did a little bit of footage and whatnot at Next Gen. And then squeezed in an interview with Paddy, which was pretty cool, actually, because obviously, yeah, not many people get to chat to him. So I managed to get a sit-down chat with him for 10 minutes. So that was pretty cool as well, which I'll be putting out later. Good to just sort of put a face to... Say that again, sorry?
Today?
Yeah, I'll be putting that out today, yeah.
Nice.
So got an interview coming out with him, and then just spent the day with Molly, went to her boxing training, we went shopping, and then for lunch went to her restaurant. And it was actually so cool. Of all the things that I've done within this...
That must have been awesome. So did you record Food Fighters there? Or is it something you still got in the works?
I recorded everything. I've got...
No way. That's
all the
sick.
content under the sun from over the last few days.
I said to you when when we went down to GBTT and we're on the way back on the train, and I said to you that just to put everything into food fighters because it's such a
Hmm,
it's the golden goose. You
you
know,
did
I
say
don't know
that.
if you remember that. Um,
I do.
and I'm glad you finally got that over the line because I know you've had that in the works for a while in terms of really expanding food fighters into something more tangible, as rather than just a sort of a personal Instagram thing, building that into something. So
Hmm.
I'm very excited. I can't wait for it. I'm looking forward
No,
to
I
it
appreciate that.
as well
So
with
it
your
was.
interviewing skills as well. Something that you're only going to improve on and already have. You know, I think it's a horrendous pun. It's a recipe. Is a nice recipe or whatever the phrase is. You know what I mean? You know what I
No,
mean?
I
It's
got
good.
you.
But the
Because
food looked great though. I have to
when
say.
I sat down for a
The
chat with Paddy, it caught me completely off guard. So I didn't know I was going to see him. Didn't know I was going to be able to have a chat with him. And usually, I've I don't plan the conversation, but I've got a couple of directions I want to sort of take it and whatnot. And I sat there, and then I just completely froze. And I was like, what do I even want to speak to you about? But anyway, we got into that. But I went to Molly's place. She actually had to shoot home because she had to do a few things before training. So I basically rocked up to her place and had the full run of the place. I got to meet the two chefs. It was completely closed to the public at this point because it wasn't open until 5. So I got the whole little corner of the restaurant to myself basically, just to stand, chat, and cook with the chefs, them take me through the dishes, and then I just tried the whole menu. Just start to finish, just tried the whole menu. The chefs looked
Nice.
after me.
That's
It was
awesome.
sick. The food was really
How's the
actually
food?
nice. Yeah, super thoughtful,
That's what you
really
want.
well. Yeah, really well made menu, and that was delicious. And then the next day, so we go to Next Gen in that evening. Sorry, they do King of the Mat, which is like a jiu-jitsu thing where
Oh
last
yeah, I
man
know.
standing
Yeah.
essentially.
Yeah.
So that was the evening, and then the following day, as I said, I've got another friend who actually used to do a lot of filming for Block Assets, so for Darren Till, Hamzat Shamaev,
Oh, of
that sort
course.
of
Yeah.
group. So I've known him through that, but he owns, like I said, a New York sort of style shop in Liverpool called Derek's, and similar thing. I dropped in a visit with him, and it was so cool because he basically had a whole room that he just essentially locked off for us. We got a big station, we got all the breads, all the sandwiches. We made all the sandwiches together, had everything filmed, and then just tried our
I'm
way through the
jealous. I'm
whole
not gonna
menu.
lie. You're
Yeah,
showing me up here.
honestly,
You
it
sound it
was
sounds
my.
like you had a great week. I'm like sitting here like fuck. Like I want to eat a nice deli sandwich, man.
And you
Yeah.
know what I'm
I'm
like.
gonna have to go there.
These are my favorite things anyway. And the food was
Yeah, of course.
genuinely incredible. It was a sandwich and coffee place. Had an iced coffee that was delightful. And then we
Oh,
made our way through the sandwiches.
stop it.
Yeah, it was unreal. I got multiple I had multiple cameras on the shoot, so I had a fixed one, I had a couple of floating cameras.
Nice.
So yeah, everything covered in terms of content. So yeah, it's been a bit of a full on week, but how about yourself, mate?
That's fucking putting it lightly. Yeah, I
Yeah,
probably
it
should have
was
gone
intense.
first because mine pales in comparison. Honestly, really, it really does. Pretty standard stuff. But the reason I wanted to sort of bring this up is, I say I got the idea. Rather, my dad got the idea because I was looking at doing Christmas shopping, and I was in Waterstones, which for those who aren't from the UK is a bookstore, and I was looking at buying Christmas presents, and I couldn't find. And I was looking at the sports section just out of curiosity, and I couldn't find a single. I swear to you, a single book on MMA, not even one.
Hmm.
And I thought about it. My dad was like, "Well, why don't you write one?" And I was like, "That's actually quite a good idea." So that's something I'm now really liking the
Nice.
idea of. I haven't written a single letter or anything like that. I haven't planned anything. But the more I sit on it, and the more I think about it, it's something I'd really like to think about doing. And I don't know how I'm going to write it, or how I'm going to structure it, or what I'm really going to talk about. But something I'd love to do maybe over the next year or two. Just start chipping away at it.
That's pretty cool.
I think it'd be a great idea. Yeah. I'd love to do that because I realize writing is just a I like it. I like it a lot. I think when you get into that groove, I've talked to you about, being in that flow state and sort of just and you're in the zone and you can just burn through
Mm.
lines and lines and lines and it just is really good stuff. And I'd like to just do that. And I think over a longer project, I like the idea of. So maybe that's something to think about. I don't really know what I'd cover or how the writing style I would use, how I'd adapt. Because obviously writing a script for a YouTube video is a different ball game. But yeah, it's exciting. It's something I'm every day I'm waking up. Last few days I've been thinking about it, and I was like, damn, this is something I
Mm.
love to do because I think it could do quite well as well. I think there's a gap there. Maybe more so in the UK. I don't know about internationally, but yeah,
would
It's
it
just an
be,
idea that
obviously
occurred to
you've
me.
not necessarily thought of it, but would it be along the lines of
I've been
covering the
thinking about it though.
sport from start
That was a
till
thought I
now?
initially had, but I'm not sure. Mainly because I don't know if I could do it the full justice. Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah, you want to be
I,
more concentrated.
maybe, but maybe in between that. So something like just covering aspects of the sport. But then again, if you do something like that, then there's no cohesion. Do you know what I mean? There's no
British MMA.
chronologically. Yeah, I thought about that too. I thought maybe the thing is, I think like well, maybe it would work better as a chapter or a couple of chapters rather than a whole thing, a whole book. But then again, it could work as a whole book as well. This is what I mean. It's so hard to think of the initial. It's the structure really. I think once I have that down, whether what it is, it does help that my dad also has written books before, so he has some experience in that regard.
Yeah,
Um,
that's a big
that's
help.
very
On
useful.
what?
Yeah.
On what?
It's more educational stuff, but again, it just helps with again, I mean in a way though, mine would that would work for me as well because I feel like I'm leaning
Mm,
towards more of an educational side of things. You know, it wouldn't be a I want to convey a story, but if blending that style, if I could find a way to blend my script style with a bit more educational, do you know what I'm saying?
mm,
Because it's a lot harder to be. I want to keep that sort of. I like to call it a thespian sort of aspect. You know what I mean? I like to add maybe like a little bit of a 10% sort of Shakespearean feel to my scripts without going overboard because that's what keeps it engaging, and that's my favorite part of it. But doing that in a book is a bit of a. You got to be careful. So I don't know. It's going to be an interesting challenge, and I had a lot of other challenges this week, really, with my Dana White video because that was a new experience for me as well. Because most of the videos I've done, if not all of them, have pretty much been on the fighter specifically. So when you're covering a guy that's, he's so involved in the UFC, but he doesn't do a day of fighting in his life, it's actually quite hard to do and keep the viewer engaged. And that was something I really struggled with in the edit was how do I keep people here? Do you know what I mean? Because people want the
mm.
violence. They're watching YouTube for violence.
I
Not
don't know
YouTube.
if
They're
they
watching these
do.
MMA videos for
I don't know
violence
if I don't know if
and
that's the
and the
case
storytelling. I mean, I
strictly.
say it's both violence and storytelling. But I mean, people were most interested in the fighters. That's probably the way I look at it. Um, but I think it done pretty well. It's really just looking at it today, it basically just flatlined dead at like 20K views, which is still I'm very happy with. So, it was a good video. I was very proud with how it turned out, but it was an interesting challenge just to explore that side of the company in a video, which I hadn't done before really, because I do prefer talking about the fighters. One, because it's easier. One, I have more knowledge on it. Two, rather, and three, because there's just more footage of them. So that also helps as well. But yeah, it's been a pretty interesting week in terms of content creation. And I was thinking more about, again, I've talked to you about building those channels in different languages out. Been looking at AI tools a little bit, which I am a bit apprehensive about. But I tried a new thing called Runaway. I don't know if you've seen that, or Runaway, which basically
Oh,
it can
is
move
that
your pictures
the
with AI.
image? Yeah, the image
Yeah,
one.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So you can create videos from an image, from a text prompt, or from your image. Didn't really work that well because I wanted to create that parallax effect, which you've seen other some creators do it, where the image looks like it's moving. That's not done with AI; it's done manually, but it's a big hassle. Um, so it's not really worth the time to do it. But I was like, if I can get AI to do it pretty well, which I'm sure I will be able to in the future, I'll
For
give it a
sure.
crack. But I gave it a little bit of experimenting. Didn't really get how I wanted it to, so I didn't end up using it. And obviously, the full thing does cost money, and that's just an expense I don't really need right now. But yeah, I mean, a lot of cool ideas brewing. I'm still working on the MMA awards video, which is going to be my big project for the end of the year, however long that's going to be. I'm going to continue working on that today, and also just I'm going to redo the Casuals Guide series again in terms of for each weight division, but as a 2024, starting in 2024, sort of yearly recap. I might make that an annual thing. Do you know what I mean? So
Mm.
yeah, I mean, I've got a lot of cool stuff in the pipeline. A
How
lot of
about
ideas. I don't know. It's exciting. This channel's doing
how
well.
about a just off the top of my head, just thinking about because you said about a recap one. How about sort of the top prospects to look out for in sort of 2024 sort of vibe? I've seen a few people do
I done that.
similar-ish.
I did that last year as well.
Oh, did you? Yeah. How did?
That was
Yeah,
like,
that sounds like a
yeah,
good
yeah. It
idea
was
to
like my
me.
fifth or sixth video. But again, I didn't
Who
actually
did it
do that as a
include?
casuals guide video. To be fair, that's a good point. I remember I was thinking about this. I definitely had Sarukin in there, but again, that was a bit of a. I felt a bit. He was kind of a bit out there at that point, so it was
Yeah,
a bit unfair. I had
established.
Umar Nurmagomedov before he'd really had a couple of cracks. Bo Nickel was on there. So let me have a
Deservedly
look.
so.
That's a good point. Yeah, deservedly so. I mean, some of them were quite safe picks, but this is actually a good. I'm gonna quickly have a look. I'm gonna quickly delve through it. Did I have? There's no way I
Because
just saw Dricus Duplessis in the preview. Surely not. I
I
wouldn't have put him
think
then back there.
I think things like that are quite in, well engaged, especially going into the new year for fight fans. And you have to think as well, there's going to be a little bit of a lull in content creation for most, just where, not a lull necessarily, but a little bit of a quiet time where there's probably a few weeks where we don't actually have any fight cards. The last one we've got is
Yeah.
obviously Leon Colby on December the 16th. So there's a little period of time where we don't really have a lot going on. So I imagine that there's going to be quite a nice demand, especially over the Christmas period, for that sort of content, and just get people excited about the fights coming up, But other than
Yeah.
that,
Just looking at this list quickly. So I kind of bent the rules a little bit with some of these, but I think they were pretty fair shouts. So flyweight had Mohamed Mokaev, which I think was pretty clear. So I didn't go for Umar Nurmagomedov for bantamweight. I mentioned it, but I went for Adrian Yanez, which has probably the only one on here that hasn't aged like that well. Obviously he's just coming off a couple of losses now. But for featherweight, this one kind of bent the rules, but I went for Nathaniel Wood more as like a because I think it was he hadn't made his debut at featherweight at that point. Maybe I'm wrong there. Oh no, he had actually. He fought Charles Jourdain, but that was a bit of a tongue-in-cheek one considering his nickname and everything. Jalen Turner, I went at lightweight, which is aged nicely. JDM at welterweight. Bo Nickel at middle. Carlos Olberg at light heavyweight, which I'm pretty happy with. Mohammed Usman at heavyweight, because I didn't think there was that many, like, weirdly, at the time, I know that sounds weird, but he's actually doing okay, to be fair. But weirdly, I looked at the time, there was no one at heavyweight. I swear to God, when I was making that video. Don't look at me like that. I'm telling you, there was no one at heavyweight, and I had to pick somebody. I thought, fuck it. Mohammed Usman, he'd won one fight in the UFC. Even they won the Ultimate Fighter, that was it. All right, tell me then, who would you have picked a year ago to be a heavyweight prospect? Because I guarantee you ain't got one
Jalton
name.
Almeida.
Not one.
Charlton Almeida.
No, no.
He was
Okay,
he was
maybe,
fighting
yeah.
dual weight
I think
classes at that time.
Oh shit!
And I would
Okay,
have
that's
said
probably
he
why I
hadn't
didn't put
even
him in
had
then.
a fight
That
in the
makes
heavyweight
sense. Yeah,
division, and
yeah.
I probably would have picked him over that, to be perfectly honest. But
Fair
yeah,
enough
it's
then.
fair.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, I mean now I would have done, of
Heavyweight's
course.
not
And then
heavyweight's
bantamweight,
not
I
easy.
kind of cheated with this one as a female bantamweight. I had I put Tatiana Suarez, more of a technicality because she'd been out for like 4 years and people kind of forgot who she was, but that was a bit of a cheat one. And then Erin Blanchfield at flyweight, which was a pretty clear shout. And then Josiane Nunes at strawweight, who I haven't seen fight in a while because I think she's quite good. But I think most of those aged pretty well.
If you could please bring up the card for next week, and we'll just have a look at some of
Yeah, we'll burn through it.
some of the most exciting ones that just jump out the page.
Wait,
to
what
us,
do we
'cause there's
have
a couple
next week? Because the pay-per-view's not for 2 weeks, is it? So
Yeah, we have
Song Gutierrez, yeah.
Yadong versus Gutierrez is the main fight,
Yeah.
which I think this is going to be a fight as well where there's going to be a lot of scrambling and a lot of questions being asked because we need to do something and find someone for Song Yadong that makes sense, because he just keeps getting better. He just keeps getting better. Very close work with Uriah Faber, one of the best minds and one of the most experienced in the game. His boxing is so crisp. He hits so hard.
Yeah.
And his grappling and scrambling ability, obviously working with those guys, is so high level. And he is a threat with those guillotines, especially coming from that camp. And Song Yadong is a real threat. And if he goes out there and just flatlines Chris Gutierrez, which I believe that he very much can do in 5 rounds,
I think he can.
Then it's big names only. And we're looking at fights. I'm thinking the likes of even Song Yadongs and Davison Figueiredos are just fun, and Peter Yarns are fun. And bantamweight is just getting so saucy.
It's
Umar
too good, isn't it?
Nurmagomedov, like who do you want to put in there? It's just so fun.
Yeah,
there's no shortage.
It's not a bad matchup you can make there. Seriously,
no.
Name a bantamweight fighter in the top 15 that's actually boring. I mean, you've got Khalil Roundtree, Anthony Smith, which I have to say, respect to Anthony for stepping up, but I think he's going to be in for a rough one. I have to say, Khalil, there's very few men I'd rather, I wouldn't want to fight like Khalil in terms of like the ones I'd be most scared of, and Roundtree is definitely one of them. The guy has tree trunks for legs and arms, built like an action man, and that's an understatement. He is
that
terrifying.
a good matchup or a bad matchup? Think about it. Is that a good
it's a weird one, isn't
matchup
it? Because
or
I
a
feel like
bad matchup?
by bad you mean as in like it does nothing for him, or how do you
No,
mean? Or do you feel like he could lose it? Because I
I
can
mean,
understand what you're saying if you think he can lose. Because really, I can
I
see him
mean,
getting
you
out
look at
grappled.
Khalil Roundtree and phenomenal talent, phenomenally violent, and he's on a 4-fight win streak, so he's got a good bit of momentum as well. And we've truly seen him finish fights in all manner of ways. But we've also seen him be very inconsistent at times. I know that's ironic because I just said
Yeah.
he's on a 4-fight win streak, but we have seen those sort of spotty performances. And there's no one with more veteran experience than Anthony Smith. And I just wonder if we see a world where he does ball rush maybe Anthony and he does tag him and likely will hurt him, but Smith can get to a body lock. He can get to the cage. He can get to a trip. He can get to
Because
he can get to
it's called
side
Lionheart
control.
for a reason. Yeah.
You know?
He's very tenacious. You can say a lot of things about Anthony Smith, but you have to say he is tenacious as fuck, and he will not like give up. And if he will get to that body lock by whether it's life or death, he will go for it. And if he can get
It's
that
true.
takedown, I think that is Khalil's massive weakness in his game is his grappling. So I honestly it is again it's the same thing I said about it was I said earlier about Sean Brady versus Ian Gary, just as an example. It's whoever can get their game plan off first, really,
Hmm.
because they're both dominant in their respective fields. It is weirdly, I quite like it as a fight. I think it's fun. Who was Roundtree meant to fight before Smith stepped in? Who was that? I can't remember. Because it was only just recently that it got replaced. We really should know this. It's very poor from us.
I do know it at the back of my head. It was one of the Russian guys.
Oh shit! Yeah.
Merkazov?
I mean that.
Merkanov? Can't remember.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Point is, this is the fight we got now. Let's enjoy it, I suppose. I mean, I'll pick Roundtree, just one because I like him, and two because I want to see bloodshed.
I think the low kicks are just
So
going to
yeah,
be.
I'll go.
How can Smith answer those? Because in
Oh,
his last fight,
absolutely, great point.
he actually done a really good job of. Well, the
He did,
weirdest thing is
yeah.
he came out on his podcast and he spoke
He says
honestly
he
for about
can't do
10
it.
minutes.
Yeah,
Honestly spoke for about
yeah.
10 minutes of how he can't physically take a leg kick, and Bisping's sitting there sort of like this, and are you sure you want to sort of talk about this? But he proceeded to talk about it for 10 minutes. But he done a really good job in the Ryan Spann fight in such a short period of time. And for such an experienced guy, to change your game so extremely is quite impressive. So he came out with a really heavily Muay Thai stance and did a much better job at checking, blocking, and evading those low kicks. So, but the thing is, it's only going to take one, not two, not three, not four, one solid kick from Khalil Roundtree, who is an absolute bulldozer. There's no better
He
word
is
for him.
terrifying.
So, what other fights
Bloody
from that
hell.
card? Anything exciting?
I mean, I like Nasrat Hakparast, aka Kelvin Gastelum, versus Jamie Malarkey. That's a fun one. I mean, there's just two lightweight staples. It almost feels like they fought a million times before. I know that sounds weird.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? It's just they're
No,
always.
100%.
I feel like they're always on a card these days. And Jamie Malarkey, he just fought. Didn't he just? Is he on a win or a loss? He fought Naimov, and he lost. He was in that fight. He was winning. But I believe he's had one since then. Yeah, John McDessie. He beat John McDessie at 293. Damn, he does fight often, doesn't he? Bloody hell. Fair play to him. On the prelims, Tatsuro Taira's fighting. I didn't even know that.
Ooh,
yeah,
nice.
Yeah.
Against who?
Song Kanan as well. Carlos Hernandez, who I don't know.
Tatsuro Tairo is one of the most exciting fighters, genuinely, just full stop. If you go watch his fights, he is man. Pure entertainment. And he just gets on the mic and just starts screaming in a high-pitched voice. It's so funny. I don't know what it's all about.
I mean, he showed his sort of first sign of proper weakness in his last fight. Which was, I believe he nearly got guillotined or something like that. He nearly got submitted right at the end of a fight. I remember. I was shitting myself because I think I had him on a parlay or something like that. But he's young. You're gonna get guys like that 14-0, young in the game, still plenty of time to learn. You're gonna get those moments. So I don't think that's anything to worry about per se. Just something you got to patch up and keep improving.
Grappler.
So excited to
nasty
see him fight.
Grappler, man.
Very
nasty grappler. Fun to watch. He's always on a
Honestly,
prelims. They're always
it's
disrespecting him.
nah. They'll
He's had a
bring him
few
up
big
though.
wins
Yeah, they're
now.
working him slow though, aren't they? They'll bring him up.
You
I
can't
mean,
work
they'll
slow
do
in the
the same thing
flyweight
they did
division.
with.
You can't.
Quite literally, yeah. That's a good point.
You just can't.
It's as a card goes, it's okay. I
That's
wouldn't say it's anything
pretty fun.
to yeah, no, that's a fun fight. But I mean, as a whole card, I mean, it's okay. I mean, I can't even pronounce his name.
Simadaji.
Timadaji. There you go. That's Alan
Simadeji.
Nascimento. I honestly, you might have to fill me in on this one.
That's a fun
I'm
fight as well. So Sumadeji is obviously known very well for that Matt Schnell fight and one of the most famous photos.
Oh, that's right. Oh, is that what he's fought in that? Oh, mad.
Yeah,
I love that.
He was in that
what,
back
the Schnell
and
triangle?
forth. Yeah, he's one of those flyweights who just puts it all on the line, and you know what you're going to get from him. You're going to get
That's what you
excitement, and you're going to get someone that's looking to come and win. And then Alan Nascimento is coming out of Shooter Box, who's a really, really tall, tricky lightweight because he's got great grappling and he's just super experienced and he's a massive for the division. So you've got two long guys in there. Flyweight's going to push a pace. I really feel like this is going to be one of them cards that is just going to sort of have very intense scraps throughout it. We had a lot of finishes this card. I think we're going to have a lot of intense scraps. And I think that's probably a good place to wrap up.
The more flyweights, the better. Yeah, sure. I mean, honestly, those... Well, I'll just quickly finish. I mean, the more flyweights, as I said, the more flyweights, the better, because we are massive campaigners for flyweight main events, and I think we can finally rest the day we get one. I might just retire from the YouTube game the moment we get a flyweight main event. I think that'll just have to be me done.
We did actually get a co-main flyweight event with someone from GB Top Team.
Oh, right. Who was that? Oh, are you expecting
Amir Albazi?
Oh shit! Oh, I thought you were talking about outside the UFC or something. Yeah, Albazi, Moreno, great fight. I have to say that's fun as fuck.
5 rounds.
It's a tough one for Albazi, though, I gotta say.
5 rounds.
It's a tough one. I mean, obviously, I think
co-main event.
It's fair to say Kai Kara France won that fight against Albazi. Wait, really?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Wait, why is it 5 rounds in a co-main?
Fun.
When's the last time they've done that?
The other day.
They do that sometimes, don't they? Just to run off.
Bobby Green.
Yeah.
I answered your question.
Wasn't. Oh, you're right. Yeah, I mean, I was gonna say because they've done the opposite quite like before. I remember back when, Zabit was fighting. He had notoriously known for his gas tank being awful, and they somehow managed to negotiate him a fight with Calvin Cater, I believe it was, for 3 rounds instead of 5 as a main event, which I thought was total horseshit back in the day, and I still do now. But honestly, the opposite, I'm all for it. More 5-round fights, the better. Even if it means I have to stay up longer and my sleep pattern gets even more fucked, I think it's worth it. I think that's worth the trade-off. But this has been the MMA Critics Podcast, episode number 27. We will see you next Sunday.